join us very shortly. Thank you so much. And without any further ado, we would request the chairpersons to please introduce our first speaker of the day, who is none other than Dr. Chaitanya Shembekar, who is chairperson of the AMOG's Infertility Committee, and sir will be speaking on pre-IVF hysteroscopy. Requesting Dr. Rajendra Chauhan and Dr. Varsha Baste to please go ahead.
Yeah, the first speaker is none other than Chaitanya. He's a very good friend of mine and everybody's. He's a Ajatashatru person from Nagpur, and he has achieved so much of success within a short period of time. One should go and see his hospital, 100-bedded hospital. The staff and everybody is so well behaved. I'm really proud of you, Chaitanya. And I have heard you so many times. You have achieved so many awards. I won't read it out, but I will tell you about the personality as Chaitanya Shembekar, a very nice, gentle fellow, having a lot of updates of lot of knowledge and keeps updating his knowledge. And he is very good orator with his knowledge. He is going to enthrall us on the office hysteroscopy or hysteroscopy in infertility. Over to you, Chaitanya.
Thank you, Dr. Varsha.
Please take.
I'll start my screen sharing. Special thanks to Dr. Nandita, Dr. Niranjan, and Dr. Pratik for giving me this opportunity. The topic for discussion is pre-IVF hysteroscopy. I bring greetings from AMOG's, Nagpur Gynec Society and Omega Hospital. इस हसी शाम में आप सबका स्वागत है. With 99% transfer rate, the success rate of IVF is only 40 to 50%, and the most limiting factor being embryo implantation. So even top quality embryos, they fail to implant, and that is the bitter truth. And therefore, our focus is always on the endometrium. So this is exactly what we want, be it IVF, IUI, time intercourse, or even natural cycle treatment. And to assess this endometrium, we have many options. The popular options are HSG, 3D TVS, and hysteroscopy. 3D transvaginal sonography is becoming more and more popular nowadays. And so the question is, so do we still have a chance or case in favor of hysteroscopy? That is what we are going to discuss in next 20 minutes or so. So if you just look at the two options which are very popular, one is HSG and other one is TVS. The only argument which is nowadays in favor of HSG is that you can assess the tubes with HSG, but there is always a pain, discomfort to the patient. The false positive rates is very high, and you may miss many pathologies, and therefore it is becoming less and less popular. As far as TVS is concerned, 3D TVS and power Doppler is the biggest competitor for hysteroscopy, and it is no doubt becoming more and more popular with more good machines coming up in the market. It has changed the scenario with sensitivity and specificity of 81 to 100%, and you can diagnose septum and other conditions very nicely with 3D TVS. Actually speaking, hysteroscopy is a gold standard in the assessment of uterine cavity with the advantage of see and treat policy, but it is not that easy. There is always a controversy, and to do or not to do hysteroscopy is a question. And if you look at the various guidelines, WHO has long back said that HSG is the investigation of choice in the management of infertility, and office hysteroscopy is recommended only when HSG or USG suggests some abnormality. So routine use of hysteroscopy is not indicated by WHO. NICE guidelines also say that there is no conclusive evidence of the benefit of hysteroscopy. It should be offered as an investigation only when there is a problem with the ultrasound. Even ASHRAE guidelines say that it could be used for diagnosis and treatment of suspected pathologies. That is how the various organizations, they tell us about the hysteroscopy. Some people, they say that procedure of hysteroscopy is done only to earn money. But I think even people say that IVF is a money minting business. What matters is evidence and results. So we should ignore such people. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना. We have to move on and do the best for our patients. So it all started with recurrent implantation failures, and there are many studies which give us idea about the role of pre-hysteroscopy in recurrent implantation failures. And this is a very nice article by Valesco on refractory endometrium, where he has given stress on the importance of hysteroscopy in thin endometrium. This is the study by Mao et al., which says that hysteroscopy is used in IVF for women with recurrent implantation failures. And they have found that the clinical pregnancy rate and implantation rate is significantly high in hysteroscopic group as compared to the control group. So it is definitely a good choice for recurrent failures. But there is a study called Trophy, which is actually RCT done in 8 countries, where they have said that hysteroscopy does not improve pregnancy rates. So Trophy study says that they cannot give Trophy to hysteroscopy for RIF cases. That is what is the conclusion of Trophy study. But most of the studies, they have said that hysteroscopy is good for RIF. Now I have a question. There are many studies on the role of hysteroscopy in RIF, and most of the studies, they say that it is beneficial. The question is, can we do hysteroscopy in all patients before IVF? So pre-IVF hysteroscopy for all, is it possible? So this is actually a step ahead, hysteroscopy for all in all patients, even in first IVF cycle. And this is the study by Dr. Josna Pundir et al., where they have concluded that there is a significantly higher pregnancy rate with hysteroscopy just before IVF. Hysteroscopy improves pregnancy rate even in asymptomatic women. They have done studies and various outcomes have been reported, and they have studied various characteristics of various studies like types of infertility, previous investigations done, timing for hysteroscopy, hysteroscopic findings, and all these things were studied. They have also studied the timings by various studies. And what was the conclusion? The result was in favor of hysteroscopy in the before the first IVF cycle. So it is a favorable result. Now, hysteroscopy has an advantage of direct visualization. It's a see and treat policy. You can do both the things in the same sitting, and that is the biggest point in favor of hysteroscopy. So let us discuss the merits of pre-IVF hysteroscopy for all. And this is a RCT by Osama Shawki et al. And we will take this study as a reference to discuss various benefits and advantages of doing hysteroscopy before IVF. So they have in this study, they have divided patients into 2 groups, 120 patients without hysteroscopy and 120 patients with hysteroscopy, and see the results. Results are interesting. 27% of the patient showed pregnancy in non-hysteroscopy group, 35% patients showed pregnancy in normal hysteroscopy group, and 42% in abnormal hysteroscopy. So this is how you get definitely good pregnancy rate when there is an abnormal hysteroscopy, and also in normal hysteroscopy as compared to no hysteroscopy group. Now, one point which is to be noted is that 33% of the patients had abnormal hysteroscopy in spite of normal ultrasound report. So ultrasound report, they missed on TVS that there was some abnormality which was detected on hysteroscopy. So this is a point which is interesting. In present study, unsuspected abnormal uterine findings were diagnosed in 33% of patients with normal HSG and normal TVS. Some of the studies have said that you can get as far as 45% cases with abnormal findings on hysteroscopy. So that is the advantage of hysteroscopy, a very high sensitivity and very high specificity, and very good in prediction of the abnormalities as compared to HSG and TVS. So you may find polyps, you may get fibroids, you may get adhesions, septa, endometritis, atrophic endometritis, and so many other features on hysteroscopy, even if the ultrasound is normal. Then why do clinicians avoid hysteroscopy? That is the question. Maybe it is because of expertise. Everybody is not expert in doing hysteroscopy. It is expensive. You have to admit the patient, you have to give anesthesia to the patient, and there are complications like fluid overload. So I think most of these questions, they are answered by this procedure, that is office hysteroscopy. And if you go for office hysteroscopy, it's like a procedure of the patient has to stay in the hospital for maybe a few hours or maybe for 30 minutes or so. The procedure is simple without anesthesia, and it's an office procedure, and even the cost is also much saved. So you have to give attention to this finding. In this study, they have divided the patient into 2 groups. In group A, there was no hysteroscopy and the pregnancy rate was 27%. And in group B1, there was no abnormality on hysteroscopy. Hysteroscopic findings were normal, but still the pregnancy rate was higher than the no hysteroscopy group. It was 37% almost. So even if there is no pathology, if just hysteroscopy improves the pregnancy rate, and this is really cool. So what is the answer to this? It is maybe because of the scratching of the endometrium, stimulation of cervix, and irrigation of the cavity by saline, which removes harmful anti-adhesive glycoproteins. So you can actually get the benefit of hysteroscopy even if you don't get any abnormality on hysteroscopy, and that is the advantage. So we know that hysteroscopy plays a crucial role. The question is the pregnancy rate improved by a scratch? And this is the answer. The Cochrane database of systematic reviews says that there is a moderate evidence that scratching of the endometrium can improve the pregnancy rate. And in this Cochrane review, they have included few studies with hysteroscopy as well. That means hysteroscopy can be done to improve the pregnancy rate just by scratching of the endometrium. We at Omega have done a small study regarding hysteroscopy. We have done hysteroscopy in all the patients 22 to 30 days before transfer, and along with that, we have done endometrial scratch. Initially, we used to do hysteroscopy in only RIF cases, but now we are doing it in all patients. So we did almost 519 patients in last 1 year. And out of this, we found that without scratch, the success rate was 37%, while with scratch, it was 44.8%. And in FET cycles, it was 51% without scratch and with scratch and 42% without scratch. That means there is definite advantage of doing a hysteroscopy along with scratching to improve the success rate. Some people say that, especially the senior gynecologists, they would say that we used to do DNC in patients of infertility. Actually, this is nothing but old wine in new bottle. It is, and people used to get success with DNC. Endometrial scratching is just like that. But if you add it along with hysteroscopy, it is going to have its effect. So we will discuss the various procedures which can be done along with this hysteroscopy. The commonest procedure is, of course, polypectomy. And polyp is the most common finding which is seen. And these polyps, if they are there inside the cavity, they will interfere with the implantation. And the only option is to remove these polyps, and the only method is hysteroscopic polypectomy. So just a scissor or a special instrument can be used and polyp can be removed. And once you remove the polyp, the conception or pregnancy rate definitely improves. Similarly, there are micropolyps, and these micropolyps are suggestive of chronic endometritis. You can diagnose this condition on hysteroscopy and treat the patient with antibiotics. Nowadays, Alice and Emma by Igenomics are new kid on the block, and these are the things which can be tried to actually know what is the particular infection is there and what is the treatment for this infection. Even if you get something like this called a strawberry aspect, this will give you idea or a clue that there is probably a chronic endometritis as a cause of implantation failure. So you can actually diagnose endometritis on hysteroscopy. You can even diagnose genital tuberculosis on hysteroscopy. And not only that, you can see the cervical erosions, and you can have hysteroscope as a colposcope, and you can do contact hysteroscopy and actually do colposcopy and see the cervical erosions as well. So all the infections can be diagnosed and treated with hysteroscopy. The commonest procedure which we all do in our day-to-day practice is septum resection. And I think septum resection is best done with resectoscope. And I actually always feel that resectoscope is the best thing to do for septum resection. But as we all know that this resectoscope can actually have its impact on the endometrium, and therefore you should ideally use scissors for doing hysteroscopic septum resection. Scissor use is always the best. We at Omega are using diode laser nowadays for aesthetic gynecology. And this is the Naya Shok which I have developed. I have started using this diode laser for doing lateral metroplasty and septum resection. And there are some studies which say that this laser is actually a safer alternative to resectoscope, and also it is feasible and safer where the diffuse energy and damage to the surrounding muscle tissue is minimum. So you can just use the laser current and do lateral metroplasty, or for that matter, even septum resection. And this is something which I have started doing since last 3-4 months, and I am doing more and more patients. And actually, I feel this is better than using resectoscope. The biggest advantage of using laser is that sometimes you need dilatation for introduction of resectoscope. Now this laser cable can be introduced through a Bertocci sheath along with the, so you don't need a dilatation. This sheath can be introduced through the operative channel of the Bertocci hysteroscope, and that is what we do. we do office hysteroscopy, and through this Bertocci, we just introduce the laser and we get the results. So no need to dilate and no need to use resectoscope. That is the advantage of diode laser. Myomectomy is something which we do, but I think the myomectomy is a procedure which I'm sorry. Myomectomy is a procedure which should be done at least 2 months before doing IVF, because when we do myomectomy and if there is it's a large fibroid, a submucous myoma, then in that situation you may damage the endometrium because of the electric current, and this may need some time for healing. So you may have to give estrogen in high dose to take care of the endometrium. So this hysteroscopy can be done used for various procedure, and hysteroscopy is also used as a mock transfer. You can measure the uterocervical length, you can assess the position of the uterus. You just put the scope and you know the direction from which direction you are going. So it is like a mock ET. So many people they do mock ET. Hysteroscopy and mock ET can be combined together. So you can actually know where to place the embryo and what is the direction of the cavity. Now, what is the timing of hysteroscopy? Most of the people, they do it within 50 to 21 days of the IVF cycle. You can do it any time in the previous cycle. You can do it in early follicular phase if you want to do the septum resection so that you get some time for estrogen treatment. You can do 2 months prior if there is a fibroid, if you want to go for myomectomy. And in case of PRP, you can do it on day 3 of IVF cycle. That is something which we will be discussing in a short while from now. So this is the very interesting study where they have noted that timing of hysteroscopy matters before IVF. Remote hysteroscopy is done 6 months before IVF are not going to help in the pregnancy, improving the pregnancy rate and conception rate. So you should do it within 1 month or at the most 2 months before IVF, ideally within 1 month before IVF. Now I have a question. Why do girls marry? Because you cannot blame government for everything and anything which is happening in your life. You need husband. Similarly, endometrium is just like husband. It is always there to bear the brunt. So whenever something goes wrong, we say that there was a problem with endometrium. Now the question is, can we improve this endometrial thickness by doing something like PRP injection? So role of PRP injection in case of RIF and thin endometrium is something which is studied in a great extent nowadays. And there is a mechanism of action of autologous PRP injection. It contains various growth factors like fibroblast growth factors and platelet derived growth factors and VEGF, and all these growth factors, they are responsible for regeneration of endometrium. We conducted a study at Omega where role of autologous PRP injection in refractory endometrium in patients with recurrent IVF failure was noted. And in this study, PRP was injected in the subendometrial layer on day 3 of the menses of IVF cycle, either stimulated or FET cycles. This is in contrast to most of the studies which studied the effect of intrauterine PRP instillation on the day of HCG of the cycle. So people have many studies where they have instilled the PRP on day of HCG. What we did is we injected PRP in the subendometrial lining on day 3 of the menses of the IVF cycle. The aim and objective was to improve the endometrial thickness and to get good pregnancy rates. Study was conducted over the period of 1 year. We took permission from Independent Ethics Committee and recruited 22 patients with RIF and known thin and refractory endometrium. Autologous PRP was injected on day 3 of menses of fresh or frozen cycle. This is the precursor PRP kit which we used for preparation of PRP. The method I will not go into details because we don't have time, but I'll just tell you how to inject the PRP into the subendometrial lining. We used Bertocci 2.9 millimeter office hysteroscope for this, and ovum pickup needle was used for injecting the PRP. We used Reprolin needle. This Reprolin needle is actually a 17 number needle which can be attached very easily to the syringe. As you can see here, you can attach the syringe directly to this Reprolin needle, and PRP 2 ml was taken and attached to the Reprolin needle. Then operative channel of Bertocci hysteroscope was used to inject the PRP. PRP was injected in the anterior and posterior wall of the uterus in the subendometrial lining, and this procedure we carried out under short GM. Now this is the video of a patient where she was a known case of thin endometrium and she had PPH in her previous pregnancy. She lost her baby, and her because during PPH the Buckley balloon was inserted, and as you can see, the endometrium was pale and there were adhesions, and you can see the small hole in the fundus. It was probably because of the Buckley balloon. So what we did is we just we had a look over in the cavity of the uterus, and then we injected PRP in the subendometrial lining. As you can see, this is how the cavity looks. And now the in this cavity, I think video is not running. So yes, so in this cavity, PRP was injected in the anterior wall and the posterior wall like this. So this is the Repro needle which is used, and as you can see, the PRP is injected into the subendometrial lining. So technically, this procedure is very easy, and you can do it with pickup needle. That is the advantage. Now, out of 22 patients, 12 had beta HCG positive, pregnancy positive, and 10 out of 22, that is 45.45% women had pregnancy with appearance of cardiac activity. There are many studies. This is a famous study by Chang et al., where they have perfused intrauterine infusion of PRP on the day of HCG, and they got 4 out of 5 women clinical pregnancy with PRP. This is a study where 14 out of 19 women had pregnancy, but here again, the PRP was infused in the cavity, not injected. And this is again one more study where 5 out of 10 patients got pregnancy with PRP infusion. So there is no reference for PRP injection in the subendometrial lining. All studies were regarding the PRP installation or infusion inside the cavity, just like GCSF. We also tried this, but we found that there is a collection in the cavity which may lead to disruption of the lining. And so we abandoned this procedure and we started doing injection of PRP in the subendometrial lining. This is what we are discussing till now, and this is the last part of my talk. Till now, we are discussing about the pre-IVF hysteroscopies. But there is something called as hysteroscopic embryo transfer. So you can use hysteroscopy even in post-IVF situation. So IVF के पहले भी, IVF के साथ भी, और IVF के बाद भी. That is the beauty of hysteroscopy. This is the study by Michael Kamrawa et al., where initially we used to do blind ET. Then we started doing ultrasound guided embryo transfer. In this study, what they have suggested is hysteroscopic endometrial embryo delivery. That is also called as HEED, or they also call it subendometrial embryo delivery. So what they did, they used a 3mm hysteroscope, and embryo transfer was done through operating channel of the hysteroscope. They did not use saline as a medium because saline will wash away the embryos, but they used nitrogen, which is an inert gas, for as a medium. So medium was nitrogen, and catheter was injected 1mm into the endometrium at the level of fundus. So after discussing so many aspects of pre-IVF hysteroscopy, and now even IVF embryo transfer with hysteroscopy, I personally feel that pre-IVF hysteroscopy can do wonders, and you should just do it. So what is the at-home message? As we all are sitting at home enjoying this webinar at the comfort of our home, the message which I would like to give you is hysteroscopy is here to stay. Pre-IVF hysteroscopy improves pregnancy rate. Hysteroscopy in recurrent implantation failure has a special role to play, but hysteroscopy before first IVF cycle too is beneficial. And with novel techniques like use of laser and injection of PRP and even embryo transfer can be tried along with hysteroscopy. So to be successful, you don't need beautiful face and heroic body. What you need is skillful mind and ability to perform. Thank you all. Thank you.
Fantastic, Dr. Chaitanya. As usual, you are really you have justified your talk of hysteroscopy.
Thank you so much,
How
Varsha.
it
Thank
is
you.
important to do pre-IVF hysteroscopy. It will wash away the unnecessary proteins. It will detect the endometritis. It will detect the minor pathologies or morphological problem in the, and the PRP that you are injecting is also more useful for getting more pregnancy in repeated IVF failure patient or thin endometrium patient. And also PRP, this hysteroscopy now new dimension is that for embryo transfer also we can use it as per your studies. You are saying that it is successfully done, and this is the thing we are looking for forward, whether we can use histoscopy for doing embryo transfer. We both have moderated many panel discussions in many conferences, and I have found a
Yes.
very good companion in you. And you are always updated with recent advances, recent papers, and you put them all in as a reference in your every talk. Thank you,
Thank you,
Chaitanya.
Dr. Varsha. Thank you.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Chaitanya. And
Thank you.
I endorse what Dr. Varsha has told. That's nice. Nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pratik.